Welcome back, everyone. If you've ever worked on a clinical trial or even interacted with one, you've likely heard the acronym ICH. And chances are, at some point, someone handed you a document labeled ICH E6 and said, "Read this. It's important." You probably glanced at it, flipped through the pages, saw a bunch of sections with titles like Sponsor Responsibilities, Monitoring, Informed Consent, and thought, "Okay, I get it. This is serious stuff. But what exactly is it? Why does it feel like the clinical research Bible?" Well, today, we're going to unpack that. And not just in a dry checklist way. We'll break it down so you really understand who ICH is, what the E6 guideline is really about, why it matters for every clinical research professional, and most importantly, how it's structured so you can actually use it in your day-to-day work, whether you're designing a trial, engaging with investigators, reviewing a protocol, or monitoring data. Our first section today is about ICH and its role. Simply, what is ICH? ICH stands for the International Council for Harmonization of Technical Requirements for Pharmaceuticals for Human Use. Yes, it's a mouthful, but the idea behind it is powerful. ICH was established in 1990 to bring together the regulatory authorities and the pharmaceutical industry from the US, Europe, and Japan, three of the biggest markets for medicines. Why? Because back then, if you wanted to conduct a global clinical trial, you had to deal with three different sets of rules, three different standards, three different definitions of what good clinical practice meant. You can imagine the chaos: inconsistent data, ethical gaps, duplicated efforts, and huge costs. So, ICH was created to harmonize the technical guidelines and regulatory expectations for drug development. And their goal? To ensure that clinical trials and product registrations could happen more efficiently without compromising safety, ethics, or scientific integrity. Today, ICH includes more regions, including Canada, China, Brazil, Korea, and works with WHO and other global players to keep the standards relevant and universal. And one of its most impactful guidelines? You guessed it. ICH E6. And this brings us to the second section of this tutorial, which is about the scope and purpose of ICH E6R2, the E6 guideline, specifically the revision 2, which is the version used today. So what's the point of this document? At its core, ICH E6R2 defines the good clinical practice, GCP standards, for designing, conducting, recording, and reporting clinical trials. Its scope covers trials involving human participants, whether they're in academic settings or industry-led, across all countries that follow ICH principles. Now here's the key. ICH E6 doesn't just apply to sponsors. It applies to investigators, monitors, medical affairs, CROs, IRBs. Everyone involved in a trial has a role defined in this document. And the goal? To ensure that the rights, safety, and well-being of trial subjects are protected. The clinical trial data are credible, reliable, and valid. Revision 2, or R2, was introduced in 2016, and it brought major updates around risk-based monitoring, quality management systems, electronic systems, and documentation, and a greater emphasis on transparency and oversight. These aren't theoretical concepts. They're now part of what regulators look for in inspections. So knowing this guideline isn't optional, it's essential. Now, while we often summarize GCP into broad themes, ethics, informed consent, data integrity, the ICH E6 guideline actually defines 13 core principles. Let me walk you through each one, briefly, clearly, and practically, so you understand not just what they say, but why they matter in your day-to-day role. 1. Ethical conduct. Clinical trials should be conducted in accordance with the ethical principles that have their origin in the Declaration of Helsinki and are consistent with GCP and applicable regulatory requirements. This isn't just about compliance, it's about starting from ethics, not efficiency. 2. Risk versus benefit. Before a trial begins, you must weigh the anticipated benefits, both to individual subjects and to public health, against the known or potential risks. Only when benefits justify the risks should a study proceed. 3. Subject rights, safety, and well-being. These come first, always. The interests of science, the company, or even society must never override the rights, safety, and well-being of trial participants. 4. Adequate scientific background trials must be based on thorough knowledge of preclinical data, published literature, and prior studies. We don't test blindly, we build on science. 5. Clear protocols. Every clinical trial must be described in a detailed written protocol that clearly defines the objectives, methodology, design, and statistical considerations. 6. Compliance with protocols. Once approved by ethics committees and regulators, the trial must follow the protocol exactly, unless a deviation is required for subject safety, and that deviation must be justified and documented. 7. Investigator qualifications. Those conducting the trial, especially principal investigators, must be qualified by education, training, and experience. No exceptions. Credentials matter. 8. Informed consent. This one's foundational. Each participant must give freely volunteered, informed consent before any trial procedure begins. And it's not a one-time form, it's a continuous dialogue. 9th, data recording and reporting. All clinical trial information must be accurately recorded, handled, and stored, allowing for clear reporting, verification, and interpretation. This protects the integrity of the study and your reputation. 10. Confidentiality. Protecting the confidentiality of records that could identify subjects is essential. Medical data isn't just information, it's a person's story. 11. Investigational products. Handling drugs or devices used in trials must be manufactured, handled, and stored according to good manufacturing practices and used in accordance with the protocol. Accountability is non-negotiable. 12. Quality systems. Implement quality assurance and quality control systems at every phase of the trial to ensure the generation of reliable data and the protection of participants. 13. Responsibilities and oversight. Sponsors and investigators share the duty of ensuring trials are monitored, audited when needed, and inspected to confirm adherence to GCP and regulatory requirements. Each of these principles isn't just a rule, it's a commitment to do things right, to honor the trust placed in us by patients, to ensure that what we're doing isn't just legal, but ethical, defensible, and worthy of the science we stand behind. And whether you're designing protocols in clinical operations, engaging sites in medical affairs, or running the study as an investigator, these 13 principles form your shared language. Now that we've covered the what and the why, let's talk about the how. How is the ICH E6 guideline actually structured? Because let's be honest, sometimes it feels like you need a translator just to navigate the sections. So now, we'll walk through the structure of the E6 guideline, so you know what's in it, where to find what you need, and how to apply it practically in your work. Let's keep going. The current version of ICH E6 R2 is structured into 8 sections. 1. Glossary. It starts with definitions. Why? Because clarity matters. You need to know exactly what terms like monitoring, investigator, sponsor, or audit trail mean in this context. 2. The principles of ICH GCP. This is where the 13 principles we just talked about are laid out clearly. Third, Institutional Review Board, IRB, Independent Ethics Committee, IEC, defines their responsibilities, like reviewing protocols, consent forms, and overseeing subject protection. Fourth, Investigator. That's you, if you're leading the study at a site. This section outlines your qualifications, responsibilities for informed consent, medical care, documentation, and compliance with the protocol. 5. Sponsor. These are the people or organizations funding and overseeing the trial, which is in more than 80% of the cases the pharmaceutical industry. This section dives into trial design, data handling, monitoring, quality assurance. It also includes new R2 additions like risk-based monitoring and quality management systems. 6. Clinical trial protocol and protocol amendments. This covers the essential elements of a protocol, what needs to be included, how amendments should be handled, and what the IRB should see. 7. Investigator's brochure. This is the central source of preclinical and clinical information about the investigational product. 8. Essential documents. Finally, this section lists every document that should be in place before, during, and after the trial to ensure GCP compliance and allow audit or inspection. From trial master files to consent forms to monitoring reports, these documents are the evidence that GCP is being followed. So, let's step back. Today, we've covered a lot, but here's the core message. ICH E6R2 is not just another dry regulatory text. It's a living framework that helps us run ethical, efficient, and scientifically sound clinical trials across the globe. Whether you're a clinical investigator, a medical affairs leader, or a study monitor, understanding how ICH works, what E6 says, and how it applies to your role isn't just helpful. It's non-negotiable if you want to be taken seriously in the world of clinical research. And as we move toward ICH E6R3 in the future, with even more emphasis on technology, patient centricity, and real-world data, you'll want to be prepared. So take the time to explore the sections, understand the principles, and reflect on how they show up in your daily work. Because good clinical practice isn't just about compliance, it's about credibility, it's about ethics, and above all, it's about trust. Thanks for joining me in this session. See you in the next tutorial. Thank you.